Well, good afternoon and welcome to Florida Repertory Theater's Stage at Home virtual talkback series for Friday, June 5th, 2020. My name is Jason Parrish. I'm your Associate Artistic Director and host for the afternoon. As is our custom here at Stage at Home, I want to begin by thanking our loyal viewers. It means so much that so many of you have been with us week after week, cheering Florida Rep and its artists and staff on as we stay engaged during this prolonged intermission. If you can believe it, today is the 9th consecutive live broadcast of Stage at Home since we connected you with the cast of A Doll's House Part 2 back in April. And what a journey it's been. So whether you're signed into Zoom and dressed from the waist up, watching on Facebook Live with a cocktail, Liz Abbott, I'm talking to you, or listening to our podcast, welcome to the discussion. I am so excited for today's talk with these 6 past Florida Rep interns. So, as many of you know, one of the jewels in Florida Rep's crown is our professional internship training program that each year brings recent college grads to Fort Myers to spend the season working in their chosen field, and many times it's their first professional experience. This program immerses them in their chosen field and oftentimes is the foundation on which these artists, technicians, and designers and administrators build a professional network and a career. Since my time as an intern in the 2005-2006 year, the company and the program have grown exponentially from hiring 5 total interns in 2005 to now upwards of 15 or 20 across all of our departments. Currently, we offer internships in acting, stage management, administration, arts education, and every single production department from paints to electrics. Of course, Florida Rep is known for its ensemble of seasoned actors, directors, and designers, but what you may not realize is that our strong sense of ensemble expands past that group to another orbit of professionals we work with over and over. And when the theater finds someone who is smart and talented and who works well with the team, we don't want to let them go. So many of our current interns, you met 4 of them last week, many of our current staff began as interns, and you met 4 of them last week. But also when we hire designers and cast for a show, we look often to the pool of talent represented by the former interns, and that is evident just by looking at the past 9 weeks. So in addition to last week's panel of current admin staffers, already Stage at Home has heard from former interns on other topics. Brady Weiss, who is in $1 Million Quartet, Molly Coyne, another actor-musician, Brian Hatch from Barefoot in the Park, Katie Lowe, the sound designer for A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. For today's panel, I wanted to check in with a group of former interns whose work since leaving Florida Rep is an illustration of just how funny this business is. There is no one path an intern takes after they finish their contract. Some stick around, some head back to school, some get to work building a career in their field, and some apply what they learned here to a whole other career path entirely. So no matter the journey, one thing is definitely certain: the program stays with you. And the people in your class become the people you'll work with long after. It's not an easy 9 months, but it is one of the smartest ways to jumpstart a career in the arts. So today we check in with Kim Morgan-Dean, an acting intern from the class of 2007, Stefanie Genda, a costume intern from the class of 2009, Tyler Gutowski, an admin intern, and Jackie Sram, an acting intern, both from the class of 2010, Jake Gwynn, an acting intern from the class of 2014, and Haley Clay, an acting intern from the class of 2018. Welcome to Stage at Home. So we'll start today by, as we do every Stage at Home, we'll start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves and give us just a picture of what you did during your internship, and then what has your journey been since. And we'll go in chronological order. So Kim, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Sure. Let me make sure I'm unmuted. Hi. So as Jason said, I was an acting intern for the 2006 to 2007 season at Florida Rep. I left that internship and went directly to the East Coast of Florida and did 2 shows back-to-back at Gable Stage in Coral Gables, Florida, and worked there for several years in South Florida, working around at different theaters. I moved to New York in 2009, did some commercial, industrial bartending work, and then I moved to Lewisburg, West Virginia in spring of 2014, where I was a member of the acting and directing company, and I also was the associate artistic director there. And I stayed there, oh boy, wow, those are some photos, huh? I left there in January of 2018, and I have been, I'm currently a member of the resident acting company at the Barter Theater in Abingdon, Virginia.
Excellent, thank you so much. And so while you were here as an acting intern, if you wouldn't mind talking, and each of you who are actors will mention this, but you worked on the main stage, and then you also did our TYA series, Theater for Young Audiences.
Yes. Yeah, I did, on the main stage, I did Moon Over Buffalo, where I played opposite Jason Parrish. And I did Scapino, and then those pictures, I wish I still had that tiara. I did The Imaginators, and we were the first production of Thomas Edison Fire of Genius that was commissioned for Florida Rep. So I remember, I think Eric Coble was there.
That was Catherine Schultz Miller.
Catherine Schultz, thank you.
Eric Coble did Zap, and you were in the reading of that.
Right. Yes, thank you. Wow.
And then you came back.
I did. I came back in 2010. I was living in the city, and Bob and Jason called me up and asked if I wanted to come back to do Relatively Speaking. Once again, opposite Jason Parrish. So anytime I'm offered to play opposite Jason, I'm going to say yeah. Particularly if there's a bump it involved, as that photo.
Right. And we'll get back to talking a bit about your residency at both GBT and at Barter. But here you are. Here we have some Barter Theater images from last summer, I believe. Yes. Yes,
that was last summer, and then there's the Singing in the Rain was 2018. 2 years.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to the person who put this slideshow together.
How dare you?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stefanie Genda, you're next. If you'll talk us through what you did with Florida Rep during your internship and what your path was like since.
Sure. So I was the costume intern for Florida Rep. It was myself and Roberta, who was the resident costume designer. So during that time frame, I got to design this actual theater for young adult audience, Cinderella Confidential, which was a touring production. It was a comedy about Cinderella, as I hope you can tell. And then I also designed a show called Alone Together, which was really exciting since I was an intern, and that was not something that had been talked about when I first interviewed. After I finished at Florida Rep, I went to grad school at Rutgers University and got my MFA in costume design. And I graduated in 2012 and just kind of started freelancing. I got a job at Manhattan Theater Club and have been able to work there, but that job also allows me to do some freelance work. So in 2014, I was asked to come and design Clybourne Park at Florida Rep, and that was when I started back in designing. I've designed, I think, at least 1 or 2 shows there ever since, I believe. Clybourne was really fun. Jason was in it. He's in a lot of the shows I do. Unexpected Guest was a really beautiful show. Best of Enemies was, I think, the first show that I got to do in the smaller art studio stage, which was really fun. To Kill a Mockingbird, again, that was just a really special, beautiful show. I've been really lucky to be able to work at Florida Rep a lot and work other regional theaters as well.
And since we have the slides up, if you'll talk about, you've done small things with us, you've done small cast shows in the studio, and you also have worked on big productions, and I'm getting to some pictures here coming up with Cabaret. So how is it different working on a play like Disgraced, say, or a play with 20 people in the cast like Cabaret? More if you count the band.
So because the studio space is so small, you can really do a lot more detail work. So you have the audience, sitting 5 feet away. So you have the option of doing very small things that maybe they will notice versus the audience will notice versus something like Cabaret. You can do some more large, bold gestures. It's designing in both spaces is really fun because the scale of the work changes, but the stories are always interesting and challenging. In terms of something like Cabaret, you have a lot more dramatic lighting. And you can do dramatic lighting, obviously, in a small space, but it that feels like a larger choice when you have dramatic lighting. And so your costumes become heightened. In this photo, I think you can really see the kind of drama that we were having at the finale of Act 1 for Cabaret. You're able to, because the audience in a large scale sees everything at once, you can make some really beautiful pictures with the other help of your design team and using color and silhouette for the costumes, versus in a smaller space, you have a smaller lens and the audience is more able to focus perhaps on one character.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefanie. We'll be back with you. And also, of course, $1 Million Quartet. So I'll just slide through these. It's great to have so many interns who come back to us so often. And also, Stefanie became an ensemble member a number of years ago. So you're an ensemble. She's an ensemble costume designer as well as a former intern. Tyler Gutowski is next on our list for an introduction. Tyler, if you'll tell us a bit about what your position was as an administrative intern and how that morphed as you came back, and where are you now?
Yeah, sure. I was an admin intern that mainly focused in company management and business in the business office when then Jason Bogdan was there and our business manager. But that quickly kind of like shifted into development. I think I just really like planning the parties. Oh, Sunny.
Who is on this call today? Hello, Sunny alumni.
Hi, Sunny. And working with our donors, and I saw how vital and important it was to our company and to our theater to have them. So I think I really took a passion for that. And then I guess I came back a year after. This is
Daniel. Yeah, I believe you came right back. So you went someplace for the summertime.
Yeah, I worked at Berkshire Theater Group, Berkshire Theater Festival during the summer. I was a producer there in the summertime in between seasons. And I think I came back for 1 or 2 seasons after my first year, or my internship at Quartet and worked in development. I was the development associate and loved it.
And what path did you take since, and where are you now?
After that year, I moved to Los Angeles because why not? I never thought I wanted to go to Los Angeles, really. I thought that I would just go to New York, back to New York. But I kind of wanted to try out TV, and I got into casting in reality television. I did a lot of really salacious shows. I guess that's the word I'll use. Shows like Hollywood Exes that had like, like R. Kelly's ex-wife on it and like basketball players' ex-wives on it. So I was basically just making sure that like, my cast didn't tear each other apart at some nice restaurant. So that was fun. And then I went on to do several seasons of Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, and I worked really closely with him. During that time, when I was working with talent a lot, is when I met the actress, probably most of you know, Fran Drescher. And we started working together on something, and I became her assistant and eventually became her day-to-day manager. And I did that for about 5.5 years. And then I just knew I needed a change, and that's not exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in music for a while, and I'm now almost 3 years been at Universal Music Publishing Group, which is the largest music company on the planet, which I love.
Terrific. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, congrats on that success.
Thanks.
We'll come back and we'll talk a bit more in depth about what it is you do there with Universal, and I'm sure people will have questions about what it was like to work with Fran Drescher. So be ready for those questions. No comment is fine. We understand. A reminder to our panel, to our viewers today, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat window here on Zoom, or you can put them in the comment thread on Facebook. So if you have any questions for our panel, please don't hesitate to ask, and we will get to those. Next on our list is Jackie Sram. So Jackie, if you'll give us a picture of of who you are and your internship experience and where you've gone since.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Jackie Sram. I was also an intern in the 2009-2010 season along Tyler. Man, I have so many different connections via Florida Rep because fun fact, Kim Morgan Dean and I also both went to undergrad together at University of Tampa. She was the one that I had heard about the internship from. So ended up at Florida Rep. I was in an acting intern and was in this production of The New Kid and then they came for me. And that season I was in the first I was in Boeing if you caught the first week of previews and closing night. That's another
we'll
longer
come back
story.
And we'll definitely I'll ask you about that. Give me I'm sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties here. So you keep talking while I find
absolutely
the slide I'm looking for.
Also that season I was in You Can't Take It With You. And then after my internship, I moved to New York, and I have been based out of New York for about 10 years now. And I've done a lot of things. So I was sort of working regionally. I came back to Florida Rep in 2011 to do Rumors. And then the next year I went back to school and I got my MFA from the New School for Drama here in the city. And I have done a couple of national tours of shows. I also spent a year in the experimental immersive theater experience Sleep No More here in the city. And and I've come back to Florida Rep a number of other times. Most recently, I was in Last Night at Ballyhoo and Cabaret.
Terrific. So sorry about, for everyone watching, I'm having a bit of a slideshow problem. I'm not sure what that's about. So I'll work on that while we talk. But thank you, Jackie. Yes, great to have you back with us. And the other thing I'll make sure to ask you about a little bit later is your work with us as an audition reader. Because I know that's something that we've also been using you for. Jake Gwynn is next on the list. So Jake, if you'll tell us a bit about your internship experience and where you've been since.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing that I picked up from my internship experience is a sense of style from Jason Parrish. It's like we're both wearing the same shirt. But while I was there, I had a great time. I was an acting apprentice and was in one of the main stage shows, My Three Angels. And funnily enough, the show that Kim Morgan did the reading for, Zap, was the one that was, oh geez, you really pulled out the good pictures for this one, didn't you?
That's right.
But we did this show, Mark Twain's Storybook, which was an absolute riot. Obviously, I had a great time. And we also did Zap, which was another just absolute blast of a time. I think the biggest thing I got from that time was like, I got to meet so many wonderful people, like Michael Satow I still stay in contact with, who I got to work with in Arsenic and Old Lace. Oh, and this picture is actually the height of my acting career at Florida Rep, where I was a dead body. It was one of my finest moments, because if you can keep me from talking, I'm very good.
Yeah, so tell us, this sort of leads to another question that I have. Tell us a bit about this experience on Arsenic and Old Lace and why you were a good fit for it. Not only did you play a dead body, but you and the director and Avi Hoffman and Peter Thomason worked out a whole bit. The reason these photos look overexposed is because it was a very low lit moment of the show where you guys had a whole comedy routine where as the dead body that they were loading into the house, you played it live, which is not generally done. And that leads to your, that was helpful because of your fight choreography experience and where you are now with your career.
Yeah, I kind of grew up as a mover. My mother was a dancer and my father was a fight director. And so I got an opportunity at Florida Rep to do things like play the dead body. I was also given the wonderful opportunity to fight captain some shows and learn how to work with professional actors and learn how to have a good time in the room and develop good work. And I took that and I eventually moved to Atlanta with two of my other fellow interns, and we set up Atlanta as our home base. And we worked in the acting scene and the indie film scene here. And eventually I got to a point where I've now started my own small little movement company. And so we're producing work on a yearly basis. We're trying to produce at least 2 to 3 shows a year. It's called Havoc Movement Company. Super small little endeavor, but it's been a really cool evolution of the whole artistic career, you know.
And tell us who you founded that company with and why that might be particularly poignant for today.
So I founded it with a fellow intern, Jake Scott Hodes, who is one of my best friends in the entire world. We had such a great time down at Florida Rep. We moved up to Atlanta together. We started the company together, and honestly, we've had really wonderful reviews so far. People have really enjoyed the work that we produced.
That's terrific. Well, congrats on that. Haley Clay, I believe you're next. If you'll tell us a bit about yourself and where you come from. And I'm still trying to work on some PowerPoint so that we get to see your beautiful production photos.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Like Jason said, my name is Haley Clay. I was an acting intern in the 2017-2018 season at Florida Rep. Through that acting internship, I graduated. I'm from Kentucky and graduated from Morehead State University with 2 bachelor's degrees, neither in theater, and turned my whole life around, packed up, moved to Florida for the internship, where I got the opportunity, so gratefully, to perform in 2 of the TYA touring shows, The Giver and Curious George, and The Golden Meatball, which I will say was my favorite. I had the opportunity to perform on the main stage in Cabaret with Jackie, which was designed by Stefanie. I also got to understudy Jackie in Last Night of Ballyhoo, which was a blast because she's so much fun to work with. And I had the opportunity to read in Alabaster in the Play Lab, which I know was just produced. I came to see it at Florida Rep this past season. So that was really cool to see that come full circle. I played the goat in the original reading.
Yeah, you were the first Wheezy, I believe.
I was the first Wheezy.
So I think I have this cooperating now, so we'll walk down memory lane with you.
Yes, you may notice I don't look anything like the person that is in these photos. Also, at my time at Florida Rep, I lost 65 pounds. I know that is like a crazy thing to say, but if these pictures don't look too much like me, then that's probably why. So lots of big changes happened for me at Florida Rep. I also had the opportunity to do one of the educational shows on the main stage with Cody C. Jones. I did Heathers the musical, so stayed a little late after my internship to participate in that as well. Some awesome students in the education program, so really grateful for that experience.
Excellent, thank you so much. And now we'll start some questions. If anyone has questions, please put them in the chat window. If you have questions on Facebook, you can drop them in. We'll go back to Kim. Kim, if you can tell us a bit about your time as an actor on the East Coast of Florida, and specifically, and I'll ask all of you this too, so think about it, if there was anything unexpected that, a connection that was made that sort of helped you move forward. And I think I'm sort of leading the witness here because I want you to tell us about, about your relationship with one of our actors and how that led to your very next job, which led to your equity card.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a clear, straight line of dots from Florida Rep to where I am now because of the people that I met at Florida Rep. And specifically, I think the person Jason is referencing is Lisa Morgan, who has become just like a mentor and one of my best friends on the planet. And when I was my intern year, I was her dresser, and on run crew, I like wheeled her around on a little church bench in Enchanted April. And we really just got to know each other. We hit it off right away. And I was coming up on the end of my internship and kind of auditioning and wondering where I was going to go. And she lived on the East Coast of Florida and told me that artistic director she knew was looking for a girl my age who could do an Irish accent for a world premiere play. And she set up the audition for me. I mean, in the retelling of it, it is so mind-bogglingly not how this industry usually works. But she set up an audition for me with the artistic director. She read with me at the audition, and he hired me on the spot. And I did that show. And then from doing that show, he kept me on to do Lieutenant of Inishmore right after that. And that I got my equity card doing that show. And then I just worked around South Florida based on the people that I got to know from that initial experience with Lisa. Yeah.
And the artistic director Kim is talking about is a man by the name of Joe Adler, who ran Gable Stage. Gable Stage is one of the pioneering companies in South Florida, and he was the founder of that company and sort of the beating heart of that company. The theater industry lost Joe very recently. So just a shout out to Joe Adler and all of the amazing work he did over at Gable Stage. So if anyone's drinking a cocktail, raise a glass to Joe Adler.
I'll do it with sparkling water. Yeah.
And your time on the East Coast, I know you said you weren't going to bring it up, but I'll ask you about the Carbonell Awards and what was that experience like. So if you'll tell us, what are the Carbonell Awards and what was your experience with the Carbonell?
Sure. They're a regional theater award in the way that the Barrymore Awards are in Philly and the Jeffies in Chicago. And yes, I was very fortunate I've been nominated 4 times and I won 2. I won for Lieutenant of Inishmore. And then an artistic director who saw me in that cast me in a show the next year called Body of Water. And I won for that as well. So yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
People were very generous.
Well, thank you. Thanks for giving us that insight. And then what made you decide to leave South Florida, head to New York? And then what was it that how did you manage to land, of all places, in Lewisburg, West Virginia at Greenbrier Valley? And then how did that lead to where you are now?
Sure. Well, I had always wanted to go to New York. It was always in my sights. And I had just kind of worked for a while and wanted to build up a resume and get my equity card before I did that. And I moved up to the city because I was so lucky in South Florida that it's a large community of theaters, but a relatively small group of actors. And at the time I was there, I think I just timed it exactly right, that I was one of the only equity women of my age and type there. And so I didn't have to audition a lot. And I sort of hit this point of, okay, well, I'm not going to get better if I don't make myself better. So I wanted the access to be able to see have access to a lot more theater to see and classes and all the things that New York provides, because it can. And so I went there to do that and sort of gain perspective and broaden my horizons a little bit. And I was there for several years. I did like some commercial stuff and voiceover stuff and industrial stuff, and had like the commercial agent and that whole business. And did a show at New York Fringe that then got picked up for the Best of Fringe Festival, which was great. And then I got, through a friend from South Florida, recommended me to this artistic director at Greenbrier Valley Theater in Lewisburg, West Virginia, to do a production of Marvelous Wonderettes. And this was summer of 2010. And I sent them my video audition and they hired me. And so I went down for 6 weeks to Lewisburg, West Virginia, which was just like getting on the train from Penn Station and getting off in West Virginia was the most mind-boggling experience. I woke up the next morning to a donkey braying outside the window. So it's like true culture shock.
Cecil, I believe, was
his name was Cecil. Bingo. I love that you remember that. And
it's terrifying. I went to visit and that was a terrifying sound.
And so I was there for 6 weeks one summer and I had a great time. We went tubing on the river and I went hiking all the time. And it was an environment I had never lived in before. And I went back to the city, and the next year, the artistic director at GBT called me and asked me to be in the company for all of 2011 and be in every show for the season. And I thought, wow, that's insane, but okay, yeah, I loved it there. So I went back and I did that. And I just fell in love with the place. It's a little town of about 4,000 people. And it's so beautiful. And I just really loved it there. And I went back as an actor several times, and then they offered me a full-time position. So I moved down in 2014 and to join the staff full-time as Associate Artistic Director. And so I did all of the casting, and I directed shows, and I was in shows, and I was there for several years. And then the point that I started looking was only because I felt like my art wasn't getting the focus that I wanted to give it, because I had other administrative duties. And I just thought, okay, I want to explore that more. I don't want to just settle into this right now. So Barter Theater is about 2.5 hours south. We're the little southwest corner of Virginia, close to the Tennessee border. And I saw that they were casting, and I thought, oh, well, that's only a couple hours away, so I'll just go see what happens. And I auditioned, and they invited me to join their resident acting company, which they are one of the only theaters in the country that has a year-round resident company of people who live here, who are in the shows, and they bring job-ins to fill out the rest of the company. But I joined here, and I started in February 1, 2018, and I have been here ever since. Loving it.
Excellent. Excellent. And we'll ask, if we have time later, we'll talk a bit about what it's like to be a resident at a place like Barter.
Sure.
And perhaps we'll also talk about what it's like to be a resident at a place like Barter at a time like right now, because I know we're all sort of on pause. Thanks, Kim. Thank you for all of that. Stefanie, this question is actually for Stefanie and Haley and I believe, and Jackie. But each of you can talk about it. The decision to go back to graduate school and why you decided to do it when you did it, because I think each of you did it on a different trajectory, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. So Stefanie, you went to graduate school after the internship, I think immediately, yes?
Yeah, that had always been my goal. Was I'd finished my undergrad, and it was a pretty actually intensive senior year. The College of Worcester has a program called independent study, where you write practically a master's thesis as your undergrad work. And I finished that, and actually my undergrad thesis was about cabaret, and I designed it in undergrad. So when I revisited it at Florida Rep, it was actually almost exactly 10 years later that I was redoing the show. But I knew I wanted to go to grad school because I wanted more connections and that kind of stuff, but I wasn't ready to go right into grad school from undergrad. So that's how I decided to do Florida Rep and start looking at internships. One of the things that was great about Florida Rep's internship was that I did get to interact with professional and equity theaters or actors and learn what it's like from a non-educational standpoint to do theater. So when I then started applying to grad schools, I had that kind of knowledge base and understanding. So it had always been my I had always had that plan of going from undergrad to an internship and then into grad school. I think I only applied to like 3 grad schools once I was at Florida Rep, and Rutgers gave me the best program, and it was the closest to New York City. And that was a big thing, that I knew I wanted to live and work in New York after graduate school. So Florida Rep, I think it was actually during Alone Together, which was the show I designed, that I went and did all of my interviews. So I like took like a weekend and was like, okay, bye, sorry guys. And flew up to New York and did Yale, NYU, and Rutgers. And it was a good experience.
Excellent. Jackie, if you could talk to us about your graduate school decision and where that fell for you.
Sure. So after my internship, I went and worked for another summer at a summer camp that I have worked at for a long time, and then moved right to New York, and then was blessed by the gods to get a job within my first month of moving to New York, and booked a national tour of the 39 Steps. So I did that for a while, and then my next acting job was doing Rumors back at Florida Rep, and it was sort of in that time that I was like thinking about it and considering it, because one of my castmates from 39 Steps was like full on like applying on the bus and, you know, filling out the applications and stuff. And it was part of my decision was fueled by being in Rumors, because I was the youngest cast member by like a long shot at that time. And I like asked all of the other actors like about it, and some of them were like, no, you don't need to, you know, you're already working, it's fine. But I remember I talked to Brad DePlanche, who had done grad school, and I will always remember that he said this to me. He was like, wherever you are in your training, you'll just get deeper. You'll just get better with more training. So that's what I have to say. I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah. And my undergrad was in musical theater, and then doing Florida Rep, which was, I did no musicals in my internship, like made me realize that out of the acting, singing, dancing, that the acting part was the most interesting to me. And so, so that's made me, I decided to get my master's in acting. And I decided to stay, to go to a school within the city, because I had already been living there for 2 years and was established and like wanted to keep that ball rolling. So, yeah.
And while Haley, we'll come to you for that same question in just a sec. But while I have you, Jackie, if you can talk to us, we laughingly say at Florida Rep we have something called the Jackie Sram Award, which is awarded to the intern who has to go on at a moment's notice as an understudy. So can you tell us your experience with Boeing, which I'm getting back to here? We managed to snap a few photographs the day that it happened.
Yeah. So it's funny that it's happened. It happens more often than you think. But
we blame you. I think you were the first.
Well, you know, Jackie Schramm Award, Jackie Schramm curse.
Yeah.
So it was my first month of being at Florida Rep. We were rehearsing and then they came for me, which is the play about the Holocaust. And we were understudying for the main stage roles in Boeing. And Boeing, it's about a man who has 3 fiancées that are all airline stewardesses from different countries, and they don't know about each other. Chaos.
And we had managed to make it to the first preview night, right? We got the first preview.
No.
It was the day before or something.
Day before. It was the company run of the show. So it was the Sunday night company run, and then the Tuesday preview was what was upcoming. I'm in rehearsal for the other TYA play. I had been understudying so there's a German, Italian, and American. I had understudied the German and the Italian, and then they pulled me out of rehearsal and said, we need you on the main stage. I was like, what? And Deanna Gibson, who was playing the American,
she'd come down with a sudden illness, and so
yes.
Jackie ended up going on for the first 4 performances.
Yes,
I believe. So.
Yes, I went on for all of that, and then closing night, I was working in the box office, and then one of the stagehands ran to the box office and said, "We need you backstage." And the woman playing the Italian had fainted and before the show, and so but then was feeling better. But it was like, will she go on? Will she not? And then so I went on for the first act with script in hand, and then she came back for the second act. Then I got to bow with the ensemble at the end of the show, so that was fun.
Yeah, Boeing was the first and hopefully only of those stories. But Jackie, thank you as always for being so quick to jump in. Haley, we'll go back to you. Talk to us about your graduate school decision, and I know that you're in the midst of it now, and that it's sort of on remote learning.
So I just what is it, like June? About a month ago from today, I graduated, unfortunately virtually, with my MFA in musical theater from the Boston Conservatory in Boston, Massachusetts. So like I was saying, yeah, Boston, go Jackie. My Florida Rep experience changed a lot for me, sort of like what I was saying earlier, and that included the trajectory, like the things that I saw for myself. So a lot different from what Stefanie was saying, was like she wanted to do an internship and then grad school. My path was totally different. So my last semester of undergrad, I actually had grad school offers on the table for music programs. One of my bachelor's is in vocal performance. And I was going to be an opera singer, and that was my track. And I remember I got accepted I had some grad school offers on the table, and then was ready to accept one of them when I got a call from Cody that said, hey, we want to offer you the Florida Rep acting internship. And I called my mom, and I was freaking out, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So I went to Florida Rep, and one of the things that Florida Rep really taught me, and sort of helped solidify my decision to go back to school, was just how much I had to learn, not only about the industry, but about the actual art of theater, because I had been in an opera program for 4 years. It's a whole different universe when you step back on stage in the theater and the musical theater world. So I just saw that the Boston Conservatory was having an audition in Miami, and I'm forever indebted to the educational team that was there that year. We had a 2-show touring day. I drove from, I think we were like in Naples, to Miami. The next morning at 10 a.m. I auditioned, and that night drove back to Fort Myers from Miami, and we had a show the next morning at like 4:30 a.m. was our call time. So I am so grateful to everyone on the educational team and all my other interns who helped make that happen. It was the only grad school that I applied to for that time. I knew that was where I was meant to be. And so when I was accepted, I had never been to Boston before. Just like I packed up my bags and came to Fort Myers. I packed up my bags and moved to Boston for the first time. Spent 2 fantastic years at the Boston Conservatory, during which I was also able to work professionally in the New England area, which has really opened a lot of doors for me that I'm very grateful for. And then, like I said, I just graduated via the computer from an MFA musical theater program here in my parents' living room last month. So been an interesting journey, but I'm very grateful for sort of the roller coaster.
And a round of applause. And as evidence, Kim talked about how small this business is, and one job led to the other. For you, there's also the added. You knew about Florida Rep before. Why is that? How did you know about Florida Rep aside from how you normally would have known?
Yeah, so my older sister, Caroline Clay, was an acting intern in 2015, the 2015 season. I know she got to work with Jackie, and I think she probably won the Jackie Sram Award that year.
Yeah.
For the work that she did in the Johnny Mercer show. So I was already very well aware of the sort of production value of Florida Rep and the experience that Caroline had there that she spoke very highly of, and the opportunities that it helped her get after her time at Florida Rep. And I was looking for sort of that same thing. And so I'm really, like I said, just really thankful for the opportunity to have been there, and that it's a familial thing. Yeah, so we get to share that.
Tyler, I want to go next to you, since your path as an administrator is wholly different from those around the table who are acting interns or designers. So how do you think your time at Florida Rep, both your internship and the 2 seasons after it, sort of set you up for the paths that were going to come next, as a TV producer, as a personal assistant to Fran Drescher, and now where you are with Universal?
Yeah, I think what Florida Rep taught me was in an amazing regional professional equity company like Florida Rep. And coming into that community, we know it's so strongly driven by the people that work there, the people that give money there. And I think it makes you have to wear a ton of hats. You have to learn how to juggle, and at least in admin, I was like running from doing stuff in the business office to handling stuff in company management to doing stuff in development. You really have to roll up your sleeves and get really comfortable at kind of being a jack of all trades. And I think that definitely prepared me and propelled me in the direction that I am now, and continues to stick with me as I continue to have to, even at a big, large company like I'm at now, it really teaches you to roll with the punches and you know, kind of be a catch-all.
And since I'm sure everyone else is thinking it, can you tell us sort of what was the day in the life working as Fran Drescher's assistant?
That was, you know, it was wild. I started working for her. We had Happily Divorced on the air. It was on TV Land. So we were in production for that, which was really fun because we got to meet, you know, there were always guest stars on that show, and there were always guest stars on when she had The Nanny on TV. So I got to meet a lot of really cool people. I became really tight with, you know, people on that set and people that came through. But it changed day to day. There were days we would be at the studio and doing the show all day long, and then have a photo shoot that evening or a photo shoot that morning, and no two day was really the same. I think probably my favorite part of the whole time working with her was when we got the call to do Cinderella on Broadway, and we moved to New York for about 6.5 months, 7 months, and I got to work on Broadway for that amount of time, which is something I never thought that I would ever do. And it was really cool to be there. I became really close friends with Carly Rae Jepsen, who was playing Cinderella at the time, and we're still friends, and she's very, very lovely. But I also, you know, working there, it was funny going into it, because Fran was very excited to work on Broadway. I was very excited to work on Broadway, but I already knew dressers who were working on the show, and I knew like someone in the ensemble already that I had worked with in regional theater. So I walked into it already kind of having these friends, which was really cool. And I made lifelong friends from that as well. But yeah, with her, it was crazy. It was long hours, morning, noon, and night. A schedule of someone like that is really grueling, and you really have to sacrifice a lot of stuff in your own life to be able to do that.
Excellent. And so what is your what are you doing now? Like what is a day-to-day sort of experience for you at Universal?
Yeah, so I'm the executive assistant to the global chairman and CEO of our company. And she this year was named the Executive of the Year by Billboard. So she was essentially #1 on a list of 100 powerful people in music, which is amazing. But, you know, we have over 40 countries that report to her, that filter right to her. And it's across A&R, which is all of our creative stuff, to stuff in TV and film, to everything business and legal affairs, finance, it all filters right to her. So it is a just as wild in the sense that it's a little over, I mean, it's the learning curve on that was very challenging, just to understand all of the agents and managers and lawyers and artists and producers and everybody that works with these artists during that time, and what a vast network of people you have to really get to understand and how the business works. So it's a catch-all. Again, it is everything, you know, she is the final signature on the line when it comes to any approvals or anything. So I really get a wonderful, broad experience and understanding of the music industry by doing that.
It sounds remarkable, and be sure to thank her for letting you come to us this afternoon in the middle of the weekday. Well,
luckily we have a beautiful thing called Summer Fridays, so I am
perfect.
Office free at this point. We're a modern company. I was texting a minute ago. It was the last 30 minutes of my workday, so I was like, I am on a Zoom. I can't talk. But yeah, so I just manage everything that she needs across the company. I handle all of her scheduling, priorities, meetings. I go to events with her, travel with her. Yeah, just make her, I'm an extension of her, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds remarkable. Thank you, Tyler. Jake, I wanted to go to you next, and if you'll talk to us a bit about your life in the movement and fight choreography world. And you were already in that world before you came to the internship. You used those skills while you were here in the internship, and then that's also translated into your life afterwards. So tell us a bit more about what it's like to be a movement and fight person.
Every day is a battle, and you have to approach it that way, is what I would say. Yeah. That's not true. I'm a very peaceful dude, you know. Both of my parents were involved in theater, and so like I grew up loving performance, right? And so it was kind of a natural path for me, and like it was, unlike so many others, it was encouraged and supported, and my parents were all about arts programs and everything. And so when I was like, you know, a young little, as you might imagine, very excitable youth, I got put in a bunch of martial arts classes. And so my dad was a lifelong martial artist, and so he put me in that route as well. And so as I went, right, I developed my acting career. And then on the other side of the acting friendship, while I was here in Atlanta, I had started hearing about a tour that kind of fit my skill sets. And I went out and I auditioned for the Marvel Universe Live Tour, the second season of it. And I got cast as the Green Goblin. And when I got there, I had also been spending like a large portion of my movement work outside of like stage combat and martial arts, since I'm a juggler. And so I do a lot of juggling and a lot of like flow arts work and everything. And so that obviously leads to fire performance at parties and everything. And
yes, we remember. Some of us remember.
I know, I know, right? I did it down at Florida Rep, right? And so like while I was acting, right, I was kind of making some side scratch performing at clubs and doing circus and street performance, like juggling and like spin and fire and stuff, right? It was, I loved street performing. It was an absolute blast, but, right, it doesn't pay the bills a whole lot, but I got to take those skills and apply them on the Marvel tour because they wanted to do a scene where they wanted to do a large scale fire production, right? A fire number, right? And so I put myself forward and eventually got signed on as an associate choreographer for the whole tour, and ended up choreographing the largest fire performance in the world, and on the largest stunt tour in the world, which was kind of cool. It was a fun time. It was really fun. I got to use some like really unique props, and like the amount of resources that you have at that scale are absolutely absurd, as a lot of you guys know. Right? You're just kind of like, I would very much like it to be like this. And they're like, great, we also gave you these as well. I'm like, oh, sick. It was just, that was like what felt like the highest corporate achievement that I had made. It was I had an absolute blast and learned so much. But corporate entertainment ended up just not being for me. So I left the tour after a year, and I took those skills in terms of like high action performances and shows that I felt had a little bit more meaning and were a little bit more politically active. Those were the kind of shows that I wanted to start doing and being involved in. And so I took the kind of organizational skill sets that I developed on the Marvel tour and applied them to the development of our work at Havoc. And so I like to say sometimes that I wanted to take what they did on the Marvel tour and just do it better, you know? So, which, you know, we're trying. We're trying out here.
That's great. It sounds like it's just a wonderful journey. And you decided not to go to New York. You decided to land in Atlanta. And you went there with a few other former interns. So feel free to shout out to them as well.
Oh my gosh. I think what was so interesting about our class is that like our class, which was myself in terms of acting apprentices, right, was myself, Jake Scott Hodis, Harley Cooper, and Ashley Anderson. All of us came from the South, you know, like I grew up in Louisiana, Ashley grew up in Georgia, Harley grew up in Kentucky, and Ashley and Scodes grew up in Florida. And so when we got done, like, while we all understood that, you know, the places to go were either really like New York or LA, if you really want to like have access to the most information available, I think a lot of us were interested in staying in the South a little bit more. And Atlanta was suggested to us by Peter Hardy Peter Thomason. Peter Hardy's here. Peter Thomason was like, hey, you guys should think about Atlanta. And we did. And I had some friends here, and so did Scodes, and so did Ash. And so this was just like a natural choice for us. And the community here is absolutely full of Florida rep apprentices. Like, we run into them all the time, you know, like, before everything shut down, I ran into some folks, I wish I could remember their name now, but I was looking at their resumes and I was like, oh my God, you're an apprentice. I was an apprentice. It was a hoot. Yeah. It was absolutely great.
Yeah, it's an easy move, obviously, just up 75 getting to Atlanta.
Terrible drive,
Jake,
though.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you, Jake. To all of you, I'll ask all of you this question. So I remember coming out of college undergrad rather, thinking I got this all figured out. I can do this now, right? And then coming to this internship and thinking, oh, wait a minute. My college experience, though it was great, didn't really prepare me for regional theater. There was no explanation of what was going on in the regions. It was just sort of training that was good and in the moment. But so I guess I'll ask you that same question. Did your undergrad give you an accurate picture of what the professional theater scene was going to be like? Yes or no? Or did the internship help to clarify that for you? Somebody said something. Kim, why don't you start us off?
I'm laughing at Jackie's reaction because we had the same undergrad experience. And
no disrespect to any of those people.
No. I had some, really unbelievable experiences in college and did roles that I wouldn't have done anywhere else and learned a tremendous amount. I will say, as far as for someone who has spent my career in regional theater specifically, I feel like the information in undergrad, and maybe it's because regional theater it's so diverse across the country that I don't think you can possibly expect any training program to be like, this is what regional theater is, because it is so many different things. And I would say that I received a lot of generalized, nebulous information and training that was helpful, but not anywhere near as helpful as the day-to-day experience of being an intern in a professional equity company. The thing that of course, when you're in college, you're like, I live and breathe theater, it's what I do. Like skipping other classes to go paint a set or something. And, and of course that is true, but there is something to, it being here at a resident company, something we talk about all the time is that, like, the grind of a regional theater. Like, we're a repertory company, so we're always into and rehearsing in a rep at once. And so it's like the blue collar work of theater is the day-to-day getting up and like being at rehearsal for 8 hours and then going home and doing the work and, having a dinner break and knowing you have a different show at night. And it really, I learned so much of that from Florida Rep, where of course, that Haley referenced that 4:30 a.m. call time to load in the set, to go to Immokalee for a 7:30 a.m. show, and then come back, unload, start your laundry, and then go to rehearsal where you were understudying a main stage thing or you were in a main stage thing, and then you're like on run crew for the show at night. I will never forget, as long as I live, I will be triggered by glitter for Bob's decision to have in the Rainmaker glitter shoot across the stage, and all of the interns had to stay and sweep it up every night. Every time I see glitter, I think about it. Probably for the rest of my life. But that grind, and then doing the whole thing again the next day. And just, that's what I learned there, that a college cannot possibly prepare you for.
Anyone else in the panel want to jump in on that question about accurate portrayal? Did college prep you for regional theater work?
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
Can I pump in, because I actually have to go. I've got to get an appointment at 5. And I have John here with me too, who's sort of snuck into the background. Our own
Yes.
John
Martin.
I know you guys want to see Johnny.
Oh, John, I love you so much.
I want to see it. So, no, I'll be really brief, and I just piggybacking on to what Kim had said. I think and Jason and I have chatted about this, and Cody and I have chatted about this too, and even John and I. It should be a bit of a grind. I mean, it really should be. I liken it to, when I was in graduate school, my first semester, second semester, I lived with 3 other med students, and they watched what I was up to, and I watched what they were up to. And it really is kind of a clearinghouse. I mean, like that first semester of med school, it's designed to get you out of there. If you can't cut it, you hit the road, right? But I think that there's something to that. It really does instill it should instill a sense of grit as well when you go through any kind of an intense apprenticeship program. And you guys all made it. And not only did you make it
gloriously,
yes, but you guys, and I think this is wonderful, and I don't want to say too much. I love that you're all on this call today, because I didn't know Jason told me who was coming on, and I couldn't remember all. I knew Stefanie's name, I heard Jack, I heard Kim. Jake, I wasn't sure if you were going to be here. Haley, I think I heard your name. I knew Tyler was coming on. I was so excited to hear from Tyler and everybody else. But I just want, for all the panelists that are on, or the everyone who's on the call, I just want to tell you that, look at how successful these young people are. I mean, look at what they've done. And so many people who are on this call today contribute to the theater in so many ways, many financially and other ways. But these kids, and you're not kids, you're young adults, you're young successful adults. These are the fruits of everyone's labor, because everything that comes in here we use to turn around to develop the best programs we can, to make sure we're going to more schools if we can, to make sure we got, different software, that Tyler can work around, or lighting that we can, or that Jake, maybe gets a couple of, sabers that we didn't have before, because we know we got a guy in here who's got those skills. So that's all. I don't want to say too much. I just, my heart is so touched to see all you guys on here, and I know everyone feels the same way, but it's wonderful to see everyone healthy and safe. And Haley, congratulations again on getting through Boston Conservatory. I do stay in touch with my friend Candace up there, so I've known that you've done very, very well.
That's my Boston mom.
Speaks very, very highly of you. And I just wanted to say, have a great afternoon to everybody, and we'll let you go. I know Johnny wants to wave on too. John, you can stay on if you want, but I gotta go. You gonna scoot? Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, cool.
Well, thank you, Greg. And for those, I speak for myself only. My internship was 15 years ago this summer. I'm hardly a young adult, and I'm pushing 40. So let's. So just so you know.
Yeah, my heart bleeds for you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're 40. I remember your first year, Jason.
Yeah.
We worked together on
37 and a half. Yeah.
Oi.
But anyway, thank you, Greg, for those words, and thank you all. Getting back to that question about did the internship or did your college experience give you an accurate picture of where you were headed in the regional theater? Anyone else want to dive in?
I'll speak to that just because of my height / I don't know, energy, whatever. In college, I was cast as all of the old lady roles, because that's what happens in college. Because if you have you only have a cast of all 18 to 22 year olds. Some of them have to play the older people, or the character people. Which in some ways prepared me for professional work, but then in others I was I remember one of my college professors, I came in with a monologue from Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, the play, and I remember her saying to me, this is great for you to work on, but you're never gonna play Anne Frank. And then at Florida Rep, this is a picture of me playing Anne Frank. It was like, I was like, oh, I'm like actually playing like roles that are my age. And that was like a total shift for me, was being like, oh yeah, no, I'm actually a young person. Not, I mean, I'm an old soul, but you know, so that was one of many of the little tidbits picked up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie. Anyone else? Haley, Tyler, Stephanie, Jake?
Yeah, I'll jump in. For me, being educated and applying that education were two totally separate things. You know, I really appreciated my education. I had a super generalist education that had a focus on, there were 2 classes every year, each semester, and they were about developing original work. And it was over the course of 16 weeks, you write a script, you put it up, and you produce it. And you, like, it's free to come to for the other students and everything, but like doing that every year was maybe the most beneficial thing that I got out of my education. And it wasn't until I came to Florida Rep that I understood really what the industry could even begin to be made of, you know, because the college education is so insular. Like, academia is about freezing information and keeping it intact so that you can learn what those who have come before you have learned, and so that you can continue a history of that knowledge, right? It's not until you get out into the world, and I gotta believe that, like, the arts industry is probably one of the, I would hope that it's one of the more fast-paced changing industries that we have out there, because we're constantly seeking to respond to new situations, such as the current situation. Like, how many, every artist that I know here in Atlanta lost their jobs over the course of a week, and then 4 different companies come out with new plans to develop work in this context, right? Like, the type of work that you have to do requires you to be on your feet out here in the industry, and it requires you to think innovatively about ways to communicate with not just your company members, but also your audience, you know? And so it's something like this, right? Like, something like this is a beautiful example of how companies are trying to not just like survive a time where their seasons have been shut down, but are trying to thrive, because now we get to have an open communication between the people who have come from this program and the audience that's there now. And I think that kind of stuff doesn't happen often enough. And so I think it's interesting that this is a choice to thrive in this moment over just trying to scrape something together, you know? And those aren't things that you learn in school so much. You gotta learn them out here in the world.
No, they are not.
Yeah.
Haley, I'll take this question to you because you were the last one to go through the process. And Stephanie, if you want to join in and talk about it from the design technical perspective. But just for some of our viewers, I want to make sure that they understand what you all go through at SETC. What is the audition process like? So if someone says, oh, how did you get the Florida Rep internship? Just tell us what you're up against when you walk through those doors at the convention center where it happens to be.
Yeah, of course. So I auditioned for Florida Rep at SETC. That's how I got the internship.
And tell us what that stands for.
Southeastern Theater Conference. So it's held twice a year, I believe, one in the fall and one in the spring. The one in the spring is sort of like the main theater conference. It's a pretty massive audition. They used to be called cattle calls, but I think that term is weird. But there's like 800 or 900 people that are auditioning across the span of 4 days. And you audition and you have 90 seconds. And in that room are representatives from, Jason, I don't even know how many theaters, like
somewhere between 50 and 80 usually.
Yeah,
I haven't been for a few years, but it's huge.
Like a massive amount of theaters, and from all over the country that do all different types of theater, from Shakespeare to repertory theaters like Florida Rep, to TYA, to touring shows. And you go in, you have 90 seconds to show them who you are, which is kind of the world that those of us who are actors live in a lot of the time.
And that's 90 seconds in which to perform a song and a monologue. And some people do a song, a monologue, and a song. They'll do 3 pieces. You have 90 seconds and you have to be super rehearsed. There's an accompanist who you just use, you go right through it and then you leave again.
And then you head out. And
And when you were there, did you have to wear a number on your chest?
Yeah, I remember my senior year when I got my Florida Rep callback, I was 333. I thought that was really lucky. I was like lucky number 3. And you go into a room after your 90 seconds with all these papers all over the wall. And if your name is written on one of those papers, and then you look at the top of the paper and there's the name of the theater that has given you a callback, and you run like a maniac to all of these different hotel rooms and conference rooms all over whatever city it might be in. I remember when I got the Florida Rep gig, it was in Lexington, Kentucky. And my Florida Rep interview was with Cody C. Jones and Brielle Zaffeldecker, who I know is here, and I guess they liked me. So it's a big undertaking, but certainly worth it, especially when you can get opportunities like this.
Sure. And it always helps, of course, if someone who's been through the program can recommend you. Kim, for example, recommended Jackie. Caroline put in a good word for her sister. I believe Jake had worked with the education director at the time, or I believe somehow knew people in that world. So that doesn't hurt. Stefanie and Tyler. Tyler, I don't know if we found you at SETC. Did we?
You did find me at SETC.
Okay. So if the two of you could talk about what the job contact service is like at SETC.
Yeah.
I didn't do SETC.
Oh, okay. Well, Tyler, tell us about that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to come in with a number on my chest and sing a song or cry or any of that sort of thing.
If you want to now, you're more than welcome.
No, it's very different. It's similar in the sense. It's sort of set up like a job fair would be set up, and it has booths for all those theaters, 50 to 80 theaters there. As Jason said, and you go by one-to-one and see if there's sign-up slots. Some theaters make you sign up and come back for a time. Some you can stand in line and meet with who's sitting at the table. And it's basically your time there to just kind of like pitch your resume, pitch yourself, show them that you're interested. And then they like the auditions, then post callbacks as well, in a way. So you can then have a little bit lengthier interview with who was there.
Sean.
I think it was
Jason Bogdan, most likely.
Maybe Sean was there. I know Bogdan was there. Jason Bogdan was there.
And Sean Griffin was our production manager at the time, I believe.
Right. So and then you would interview with them, and that's how I got it. I got it through SCTC as well, and then I went back with you guys and helped with auditions my years. So. It's
for those watching, SETC is like nothing you've ever experienced before. Having been there as an actor myself, I was completely overwhelmed. I actually sent in a VHS tape to Florida Rep, and that's how I got the job. Yes, a VHS tape in the mail. Stefanie, how did you crash the party if it wasn't SETC?
I applied, I was looking at different internships at the end of my senior year, and I found, I think, on Offstage Jobs. And actually, I think, Jason, you were the one that interviewed me.
Yes,
I think that was the case. And actually, I have a very strong memory of leaving college and driving to go back to my parents' house. And I got a phone call from you as I was heading out of Worcester, Ohio. And I pulled over on the side of the road, and that's when you offered me the internship, and I accepted. But I was literally leaving college, and then I was like, okay, I guess this is fate.
Yeah, I think the circumstances, I don't usually hire production interns, but I think the circumstances where our production manager at the time was outgoing, so I think he left the resumes with me and said, these are the people you should hire them. And Stefanie and I went to college right down the street from each other. I went to college in another town just down the street from Freedom. We're heading toward, we're going to need to wrap it up. Does anyone on the panel have final thoughts? If you want to tell us what you're looking forward to most about getting out of this intermission, this quarantine. Any final thoughts to these people here who are watching, who are some of Florida Rep's closest friends and family and donors? final thoughts? Kim?
Yeah, I guess I will say, as someone who has been on both sides as a arts administrator and as a actor, first of all, thank you for tuning into things like this. We here at Barter are doing things like this to do audience engagement, and thank you for showing up right now. I think it's really scary for everyone who works in the arts. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like there is I know here at this company, and I imagine this is the feeling of artists everywhere, is we cannot wait to get back, and I dream about what it is going to be like to be in front of an audience for the first time. I think about it all the time. And so thank you for continuing to engage and not feel like arts organizations are out in a void, just being here and engaging in things like this. Thank you. As much as you can do it and tell your friends to do it, keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else? Final thoughts? Yes, Haley.
Just like Kim was saying, I'm just so thankful. And I think one thing that all of us have alluded to in one way or another, whether it's through connections or friendships, your time at Florida Rep never really leaves you. And it can be from the things that you learned or the people that you've met and the places that those people take you. It's almost like all roads lead back to Florida Rep, at least for me. And I know I'm only a little over 2 years out of my internship, but I feel so grateful for the time. I've been back every season since I left, just to see the incredible work that's going on there. And thanks to Jason for having us here, and thanks to everyone, like Kim said, for tuning in. Just so grateful for supporters of the arts, especially in times like right now.
And while I have you, I did want to ask this before we go. What was it like for you to be one of the first people to read that Goonie character that Audrey Sefley wrote, Wheezy? What was it like to then come back 2 years later and to be able to see the production? And so for those who don't know, Haley and the other acting intern, one of the other acting interns, Julia Ruffino, played Wheezy and Bib in that reading in 2018. And then they came back in January to see the production. So what was it like seeing how you helped to bring that, you helped clarify that for the playwright, I believe?
Yeah,
what was it like?
It was, I think I said this earlier, such a full circle experience. So we got to work, like you said, Jason, so close with Audrey Sefley, who's the playwright on Alabaster, and Rachel Bertram Powers was also in the play lab, and she's from Alabama, and so there were so many, connections that it really just felt like when I walked in to the studio space this past spring and saw that set, it was like I was in a whole different universe. It really helped solidify, and I think made me really proud of the work that I was able to do in the play lab, and the different things that I was able to bring to the character, and watching it come to life with Carolyn, right, was Wheezy, and just such an incredible moment. I mean, I'm kind of rambling because I don't think I really have words for it. It was a really, really magical experience. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Panelists, final thoughts. Tyler, I saw you unmute.
I just wanted to piggyback what Kim said. I think that a lot of people probably watching this right now are already incredible donors of the theater. But if you've been touched by theater the same way we have, in the sense that we work in this and you do this your entire life, know that donors and support in the community is so vital for us to continue to live the way we love to live and give you great performances and give you great shows. Even I still go back to New York and I see every freaking show I can see while I'm there, and it's it will never leave my bones. Even working in music and having worked in trashy reality television, it will never leave I will always be a theater kid to the core, and it shaped me for my whole life. So if you're a donor, I just say I don't know if I'm playing development associate again, but just tell a friend to donate $5, $10, $15, whatever. It's so little to do that, and so easy to do that. but it is so impactful and so meaningful for the people who continue to present great theater and the arts to communities like Fort Myers, that it really is the art. It is the place in Fort Myers for you to go for it.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you so much. Anyone else have final thoughts? All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this, our 9th week of Stage at Home. Let's have one more virtual round of applause for all of our panelists. Yes, thank you so much for spending your Friday with us. I also want to make a shout out to all of the Florida Rep interns from the company's 22-year history. Florida Rep owes you a great deal. We owe a great deal of our success to the work you've done each season. So thank you, all of our former interns, for being so much a part of our theater family. So a round of applause digitally for all of them as well. To our Stage at Home viewers, a reminder that past Stage at Home talkbacks are all available on Florida Rep's YouTube and Facebook pages, including last week's, which is now up if you're interested in rewatching that. And of course, we're also a free podcast on Spotify, Google Playlists, Anchor, Breaker, and Radio Public. We hope to see you all online next week for an in-depth discussion of what it was like to create the world of Annie Sullivan and Helen Keller for the 2018 production of The Miracle Worker. We'll reunite actors Betsy Hoag and Liza Jane Longenhagen, who is now 13, with their director Maureen Heffernan for a look at what it took to bring that show to life. So to sign up for next week or for updates about Florida Rep and Stage at Home, please follow us on Facebook. Make sure you're on our email list or visit the news and events page at floridarep.org. Again, thank you all for spending the afternoon with us. And while we can't yet gather at the theater, we will see you there soon. So from all of us at Florida Rep, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.